Greetings, public history of public health class. Today we're going to be talking about the guinea worm eradication. Guinea worm, the human scourge. The guinea worm is considered a neglected tropical disease, also known as dracunculiosis, which is a parasitic infection caused by the nematode roundworm parasite Dracunculosis medinosus. It is contracted when people consume water from stagnant sources contaminated with guinea worm larvae. Can also be contracted via fish. The guinea worm hitches a ride on a water flea. Once inside the human abdomen, the guinea worm larvae mate and female worms mature and grow. After about a year of incubation, the female guinea worm, 1 meter long, creates an agonizingly painful lesion on the skin and slowly emerges from the body. Guinea worm sufferers may try and seek relief from the burning sensation by going into the water. Once in a water source, the cycle starts anew. It causes the emerging worm to release its larva into the water. This is a picture of a worm being removed from the skin. You have to remove it over a period of more than a month. It will slowly emerge inch by inch, and you have to wrap a stick or something around it to gradually pull it out. If you attempt to rip it out, it will segment, putting fragments of the worm into the body, causing an immune response. And if the wound becomes infected, there is a 1% death rate. So treatment after the wound has been removed, after the worm has been removed, is to bandage it, wrap it up, and use antibiotics. Unfortunately, the average infectee might have more than one worm, which makes it even worse. The history of guinea worm or dracunculosis. I'm going to stop using its technical term. It's guinea worm disease. It is first described in medical textbooks in Egypt in 1500 BCE. It is believed to be the fiery serpent mentioned in the Bible in the 12th to 13th century BCE because it was endemic to the Red Sea area. It was also found in a mummy from 1000 BCE in Egypt. This is according to Encyclopedia Britannica. History continued. In the 1600s, it was encountered by Europeans who had reached Africa both to trade slaves and for settlement. They saw massive numbers of infected people on the Guinea coast, and unfortunately for some Europeans, they ended up getting the worm, and it was very hard to get out. The expanding of guinea worm knowledge occurred around this time. It was mentioned in ancient Roman and ancient Greek sources as well. So they slowly used science as discovered at the time to expand their knowledge of the worm and how to treat it. A Soviet physician in the 1900s discovered it was transmitted by contaminated water and used it to wipe out the worm in the southern parts of the country. In 1986, former President Jimmy Carter and the Carter Foundation decided to start the eradication campaign. At the time, there were 3.6 million cases in 21 countries in Africa and Asia. It is estimated that prior to colonialization, and around that time, there were probably 78 million people infected using retrospective demographic data. In 1988, Carter visited Ghana and saw tens of thousands infected with the parasitic infection. As a result, he expanded the eradication program. In the 2010s, the disease was found to infect dogs, cats, and baboons. This increased the difficulty of the eradication program. It was discovered in animals because fishermen who were eating fish protein from the time would leave fish scraps out, and it turns out that some of them were contaminated with guinea worm, and the dogs and so on would attempt to eat it, which of course would cause an animal case. And an animal case could, put it back into the water supply or could infect a human. So it was determined that the program needed to be expanded to focus on animal cases as well. So far, interventions in that area include encouraging fishermen to bury fish heads and fish waste, as well as offering like the equivalent of $100 reward for every infected case, which in these very poor regions that have them, ensures that a large chunk of infected animals are found and discovered. In 2024, only one human case was recorded, but there were hundreds of animal cases that also need to be contained. So in terms of eradication, the eradication program has gone from just certifying that there's no human cases in 3 years, similar to smallpox, to going all the way to determining that there's no animal cases as well. The history of eradication campaign and partners. The Carter Center spearheads the effort. With the WHO, World Health Organization, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, and other partners, as well as local health ministries. The reason why this eradication program was jump-started in the first place is because it has few methods of transmission. It's relatively cheap to get rid of. Just drop larvicide in the water. Relatively safe larvicide for a couple cents a piece. Provide anti-worm medication to infected people for a couple cents a piece. It's also about humanitarianism, eradicating a horrible, horrifying disease that infects people and causes gruesome symptoms is pretty high on the priority list. Combined with a little bit of self-interest, for example, this helps America's image, especially since America has made a lot of mistakes. Additionally, more and more international tourists from Western countries are visiting Africa, so eliminating this illness is a high priority, if only because man infected with parasitic worm overseas needs treatment in American hospital is bad for business. So the Carter Center leads the eradication campaign, compiles and distributes case numbers, provides technical and financial assistance to national programs to interrupt the transmission and bring cases to zero. When transmission is interrupted, the center provides continued assistance in developing and strengthening surveillance in worm-free areas and preparing nations for official certification. National ministries of health in endemic countries oversee domestic worm elimination programs and engage and train field and supervisory staff. The World Health Organization is responsible for certifying countries as guinea worm free and is the only organization that can officially certify the eradication of the disease. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention provides technical assistance that verifies whether worms from patients are truly guinea worms. UNICEF mainly assists by helping to provide safe sources of drinking water to priority areas identified by the National Guinea Worm Eradication Program. This is from the Carter Center. Worm life cycle. The cycle starts when an infected person seeks to put out the burning by putting their feet in the water. This causes the larva eggs to be dumped into the water supply, which is then drank, and the water flea is digested, but the worm stays in the stomach. Additionally, eating fish from the river could also infect you, and the cycle continues. This is a graph of guinea worm cases. In the 1980s, when the program was started, there was 1 million cases. As you can see, it's fallen quite hard. The cases have been ticked up a little bit, but ticked down. This is from 2022. The data from 2023 and 2024 is a bit slow. It is always verified in March of the next year. So cases are on the downward trend. This is a map of endemic countries. In 1980, you can see that there were cases in India, Pakistan, and there was no surveillance available for South Sudan, the Central African Republic, Niger, and it was highly endemic in Nigeria. In 1995, Yemen was added to the surveillance and it was determined to be there, while cases in India and Pakistan started to fall off a cliff. As you can see, in 2000, the number of India and Pakistan had 0 cases and were gradually verified as free of the illness. As you can see, by looking at it, cases have also started to fall in Niger and the west coast of Africa, while increasing in the center and sides. You can also see by 2005 that most cases are in Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Sudan. You can see that more and more countries are reporting like 1 or 5 cases or none, but it continues to be persistent by 2016 in Ethiopia, South Sudan, the Central African Republic, so on. Challenges to eradication. Civil war. A lot of these countries have been horribly unstable for a long time. This has caused a lack of access to endemic regions because of security issues. This makes it harder to verify interrupted transmission. The discovery of animal infections, which could spread it to humans, has also made it harder to verify eradication. In 2023, human cases were reported in South Sudan, Chad, Ethiopia, and the Central African Republic. Animal cases were reported in Chad, Mali, Cameroon, Angola, Ethiopia, and South Sudan. This is also the same worm and can infect humans. So you see how there are only 4 or 5 countries in which it's been certified as endemic, but Mali, Cameroon, and Angola have animal cases only, which have to be managed. Fortunately, in 2023, the number of animal cases fell by 20%. Sources used. I used the Wikipedia article on draconuliosis, the eradication of draconuliosis on Wikipedia, and the cartercenter.org/health/guinea worm/index. I also used the Encyclopedia Britannica source. Hope for the future. Much like the polio eradication campaign, this could actually be eradicated sometime in the near future. But with the new polio in Gaza and the fact that polio's a virus and vaccine distributed strands, I think it's possible that guinea worm disease might be actually eradicated before polio. It has missed some of its eradication goals. The WHO said 1990, 2000, then Carter Center said 2010, 2020. I'm really hoping we can eradicate it, or we can have no human cases by 2025, if only so that Jimmy Carter might have a chance of getting to see it. We've only had 1 case this year. But again, that wouldn't effectively make it eradicated until we wiped out animal cases. So that is the status. That is the progress report. And that's my presentation, guys. Have a great day.